Welcome to Infinity Prep. In today's video, you will learn how to easily solve SAT math problems. This video will not only be a good introduction to common questions you'll see throughout the SAT, but also will help you if you're struggling with SAT math in general. Okay, so let's start with question 1. Now, question 1 is asking, which of the following is an equation of line L in the xy plane above? So all we have to do is match up the equation with the graph shown. And it can't be A or B because those are both just horizontal and vertical lines. Because A is going to be x equal 1 is going to look something like that, and y equals 1 is going to look something like that. And we're stuck with C and D, and we'll see which one is right. Now, it can't be C because C, it crosses the origin, which this line does not. So we're left with answer choice D, which makes sense. Okay, now let's go to question 2. Question 2 states that the circle above has a center O and has a circumference of 36, and it's asking for the minor arc AC. Now for these circle questions, it's important to remember that most of these you can just do with simple ratios. Like for this one, for example, we're given a 90-degree angle, and we know that the total degrees in a circle is 360. And we can set that up as a ratio because we're given the circumference and we have to find minor arc AC. So we're given we're given the whole circumference and we have to find this part of it. And since we know a part in degrees of that corresponding minor arc, and we know that the total amount of degrees in the circle is 360, basically we're just doing part over whole is equal to another part over another whole. So those ratios would be equal. And since we know this, now we can just solve for x. So 90 over 360 is equal to x over 36, where x is basically going to be the length of minor arc AC. So 90 over 360 is going to be equal to 9 over 36, because that's just a factor of 10. Because 36 times 10 is equal to 360, so x times 10 has to equal 90, which is 9. Okay, now we're going to go on to number 3. Now number 3 states, asks, what are the solutions to the quadratic equation 4x squared minus 8x minus 12? And all we have to do is find the solutions, right? So to do this, we would just factor. So 4x squared minus 8x minus 12 equals 0 can be rewritten as 4, and then in parentheses, x squared minus 2x minus 3. I just factored out the 4 from the equation, right? And since it's all equal to 0, you can divide out the 4 on both sides and it wouldn't really change anything, because 0 divided by 4 is going to be 0. And we're left with x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. And now we would just factor like any other factor, right? So all we do here is we would find what two numbers multiply to negative 3 and add to negative 2. And those two numbers would be x minus 3 and x plus 1. Because negative 3 times 1 is going to be negative 3, but also negative 3 plus 1 is going to be negative 2. So those conditions are met, and that's going to be our answer. Now all we do is just solve for x. So if all of this is equal to 0, x minus 3 equals 0, and we get x equals 3, and x plus 1 equals 0, just solve, and we get x equals negative 1. So it's going to be x equals 3 and x equals negative 1. And that gives us answer choice B. Okay, now let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is asking, which of the following is an example of a function whose graph in the xy plane has no x-intercept? So if it has no x-intercept, it doesn't cross the x-axis at all. Or in other words, it doesn't have any roots, or it doesn't have any real zeros. Now, in this case, only C matches up with our reasoning, because it says a quadratic function with no real zeros. All the other examples say that it has a zero. See, it says with real zeros or with at least one real zero. And A says a linear function whose rate of change is not 0. Any linear function is going to have a x-intercept, right? Because it has to at one point eventually cross x. Think of any linear example. Like for example, we'll say 2x. 2x goes to the origin, right? So it's still going to cross 0, which is an x-intercept. And by the way, zeros, x-intercepts, and roots, they all mean the same thing. They can be used interchangeably. So just remember that for future reference. So with that, we know that our answer is C. Okay, now let's go on to number 5. Number 5 states that in the equation above, k is a constant and x equals 9. And it's asking for the value of k. So we'll first plug in what we know. And we'll rewrite this as the square root of x plus 2 equals 9. Now to get rid of the square, all we do is to get rid of the square root, all we do is we square it. So by squaring both sides, we get k plus 2 equals 81. And by solving for k, we get 79. And that is our answer. Okay, now let's go on to number 6. Number 6 is asking for the sum of the expressions a squared minus 1 and a plus 1. So all we do is we just add like any other. So we get, a squared minus 1 plus a plus 1. The negative 1 and 1 cancel out, and we're left with a squared plus a. Answer choice A. Okay, now let's go on to number 7. Number 7 states that Jackie has 2 summer jobs. She works as a tutor that pays her $12 an hour, and a lifeguard that pays her $9.50 an hour. She can work no more than 20 hours per week. So we would look for something like this. So no more is going to be looking like this, because it can, the maximum amount of hours you can work is 20. So that's the sign we would use. So anything that doesn't match up with that, we can cancel out. And A and D don't match up with that. So now we'll keep reading. But she wants to earn at least $220 per week. And when you're saying at least 220, you're saying that's the minimum amount she wants to earn. So she can very well earn more than that, but she wants to earn at least 220. So it's going to look something like that. And answer choice C matches that. Answer choice B has it like this, and in that case that would mean she wants to earn no more than 220, and that wouldn't make sense. So number 7 is going to be C. Okay, number 8. Number 8 states that in air the speed of sound s in meters per second is a linear function of the air temperature T in degrees Celsius, and is given by the equation S of T equals 0.6T plus 331.4, and it's asking for the interpretation of 331.4. Now we know that 331.4 is just going to be the y-intercept. So basically when the temperature in Celsius is 0, the y-intercept is going to be 331.4, right? So, and the y-intercept in this case is going to be the speed of sound. So that gives us answer choice A. The speed of sound in meters per second at 0 degrees is 331.4. Okay, now let's go to number 9. Number 9 states that if xy is a solution to the system of equations above and x is greater than 0, what is the value of xy? So we know y equals x squared. So, and it's here, there's a y in this equation, so we'll just sub in x squared for y. So 2x squared plus 6 equals 2x plus 3. And that gives us 2x squared plus 6 equals 2x plus 6. Subtract out the 6. 2x squared equals 2x. Divide by 2 on both sides, and we get x squared equals x. Now here, the only number that can be squared and still equal itself is 1. So I know that x equals 1. So x equals 1. But it's asking for xy, so let's find y. So we know y equals x squared, and if x equals 1, then y equals 1 squared. So y is also equal to 1. So the value of xy is going to be 1 times 1, which is just 1, giving us answer choice A. Okay, now let's go to number 10. Number 10 states if a squared plus b squared equals z and ab equals y, which of the following is equivalent to 4z plus 8y? All we do is we plug in a squared plus b squared for z, and for y we plug in ab, and we get 4a squared plus 4b squared equals 8ab. I mean plus 8ab, right? And we're trying to find which of the answer choices here is equivalent to this. So we'll start off with a plus 2b times a plus 2b, because it's a plus 2b squared, which is just going to be a plus 2b times itself. And we would just multiply this out and see if it matches this. So that gives us a squared plus 2ab plus 2ab plus 4b squared, which is going to be a squared plus 4ab plus 4b squared. That does not match our answer, so we know that a is not going to be the answer, and we'll go on to b. I don't want to get confused, so I'll just label these. So 2a plus 2b squared is just going to be times itself. And let's do the math. So 2a times 2a is 4a squared, and then 2a times 2b is plus 4ab, and the same thing again, plus 4ab plus 4b squared, and that gives us 4a squared plus 8ab plus 4b squared. And as we can see, this does match up with our answer here, so that is the right answer. So number 10 is B. Okay, now let's go on to number 11. 11 states that the volume of a right circular cylinder A is 22 cubic centimeters. What is the volume in cubic centimeters of a right circular cylinder with twice the radius and half the height of cylinder A? Okay, so for this, let's make up our own numbers for the radius and the height, and we'll apply those conditions and see how our volume changes. So, for example, let's say that the radius is 2 and the height is 6. So we know that the volume formula is volume equals pi times the radius squared times h. Now, if we didn't know this, we can just go back to the formula sheet given and it would be on there, so that shouldn't be a problem. But anyways, let's keep going. So the volume is equal to pi times 2 squared times 6, and 2 squared is 4, and 6 times 4 is 24. So the volume is equal to 24 pi. Now let's apply those conditions of twicing the radius and halving the height. So if we twice the radius, we get r equals 4, and halving the height, we get h equals 3. So we get volume equals pi times 4 squared times 3, which is just going to be 16 times 3 times pi, which is 48 pi. Now as we can see, from going from 24 to 48, it's just a factor of 2. We're just multiplying by 2. So in that case, it's going to be the same with a volume of 22. So if cylinder A is 22, we know that the new cylinder is going to be 44, which is answer choice C, and that's our answer. Okay, now let's go on to number 12. Number 12 states that it's asking which of the following is equivalent to 9 to the power of 3 over 4. Now if you didn't know about the exponent rules, I would recommend watching a video on YouTube to familiarize yourself with those rules, because they're going to be very helpful on the SAT. But nevertheless, let's go into this and see what the answer is. So we can rewrite this as 9 cubed under the 4th root, right? And right off the bat, we can cancel A and B, because we can just tell that that is not going to be equal to any of these. And well, we have C and D. So these are all in terms of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 9 in terms of 3 as well. So we know that 9 is just 3 squared. So 3 squared to the power of 3, all under the 4th root, is the same thing as 3 squared times the power of 3 over 4. And that's going to be 3 to the power of 6 over 4, which can be simplified to 3 over 2. So we get 3 to the power of 3 over 2. And all we do here is we would get 3 cubed to the square root, which is the square root of 27. And right off the bat, we can cancel out C here too, because the square root of 3 does not match the square root of 27. And that leaves us with answer choice D. And how we know this is right is the square root of 27 is just the same as the square root of 9 times 3. And we know that the square root of 9 times the square root of 3 is going to just be 3 times the square root of 3, which gives us answer choice D. Okay, now let's move on to number 13. Number 13 states that at a restaurant, n cups of tea are made by adding tea bags to hot water. If t equals n plus t, how many additional tea bags are needed to make each additional cup of tea? So let's say n equals 3. In that case, 3 plus 2, if we use this equation, we get t equals 5, right? So now let's increase n by 1, so we get n equals 4, and now we would see that t equals 4 plus 2, which is 6, so it's just increasing by a factor of 1. So the answer choice B would make sense here. Okay, now let's go to number 14. Number 14 states that the function f is defined by the equation above, which is the following is the graph of y equals negative f of x. So first let's visualize how f of x would look. So f of x would look something like this, right? Because it's an exponential function and it's 2 to the power of x plus 1. So it looks something like that. And we know that the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So let's solve for that real fast. And we get the y-intercept to equal 2. So we know that when it's reflected, the y-intercept will be negative 2. And how we know this is because negative f of x means that it's reflected over the x-axis. So it looks something like that. So now let's see which of these graphs match the shape and the y-intercept. So we know it can't be A or B because they don't match the shape at all. So we're left with either C or D, and only C crosses at negative 2. So we know the answer choice is C. Okay, so now let's go on to number 15. So number 15 states that Alan drives an average of 100 miles each week. His car can travel an average of 25 miles per gallon of gasoline. Alan would like to reduce his weekly expenditure on gasoline by $5. So minus 5. And assuming gasoline costs $4 per gallon, which equation can Alan use to determine how many fewer miles M he should drive each week? Okay, so we're trying to find out what times M is going to equal to $5. So we know that it can't be C or A because they both equal 95, and that's wrong. So it's either B or D. Now let's figure out what the answer is. So it's saying that each gallon of gasoline costs $4, and we know that he drives, for each gallon of gasoline, he can drive 25 miles, right? And if the gallons cancel out, we get 4 over 25 times whatever, how many miles he needs to cut down equals 5. And that gives us answer choice D. So let's go on to number 16. Number 16 says that Maria plans to rent a boat, and the boat costs $60 per hour, and she will also have to pay a water safety course that costs $10. So it's going to look something like this, 60x plus 10, and it's saying she wants to spend no more than $280 for the rental on the course, so it's going to look like that. And if the boat rental is available for only a whole number of hours, what is the maximum number of hours for which she can rent the boat? So we're looking for the closest whole number, pretty much. So we'll solve this out. We get this, and then we want to divide the 60 out. So we get something like that. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 26 or 27 over 6. And if we do the math, we know that 6 can go into 27 4 times. And that's 24. And then we subtract and get a 3. Add a decimal, add a 0, and 6 can go into 35 times, so the answer is 4.5. But it's asking for the maximum whole hours, so it can't be 4.5. We have to round down, so the answer will be 4. Okay, now let's go to number 17. Number 17 states what value of p is the solution to the equation above. So all we're doing is just solving for p. So we get 2p plus 2. All I'm doing is distributing out the 2 plus 8p minus 8. Same thing, just distributing out the 8 equals 5p. I'm going to simplify the like terms. So we get 10p minus 6 equals 5p. Subtract 10p from both sides. Negative 6 equals negative 5p. Divide out the negative 5 and we get 6 over 5 equals p. Okay, now let's go to number 18. Number 18 says that the system of equations has solution xy. What is the value of x? So we know that y equals 2x, so let's just substitute 2x in for y. So we get 1/2 2x plus 2x equals 21 over 2. So we get 1/2 times 4x equals 21 over 2, which is just 2x equals 21 over 2. Divide by 2 on both sides, and we get x equals 21 over 4. And that should be our answer. So now let's go on to number 19. Number 19 states that the expression above is equivalent to a over x plus 2 squared, where a is a positive constant and x is not equal to negative 2. What is the value of a? Okay, so we want to get this expression in terms of a over x plus 2 squared. Okay, and to do this, all we really have to do is notice how the denominator here matches up with this, but it doesn't over here. Sorry, let me rewrite that. So all we have to do is, to get this to match up with this, we just have to multiply by x plus 2. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So we multiply here by x plus 2 again, and we get 2x plus 6 minus 2x plus 2 is over x plus 2 squared is equal to a over x plus 2. Now all we do is simplify 2x plus 6 minus 2x minus 2, or minus 4. I'm just distributing out the negative 2 here and here. And we get, if we simplify, the negative 2x and 2x cancel out, and 6 minus 4 is going to be 2, so we get 2 over x plus 2 squared. So a is equal to 2. And that is the answer for number 19. Okay, so now let's go on to the last question, number 20. It's stating that the intersecting lines RS and T are shown below. What is the value of x? So we know that we're given two angles and we're asked to find x, right? So we know that a straight line has an angle of 180. So we know that this is a straight line. So whatever this angle is, it has to be 180 minus 106, which is 74. Now we just add these two angles over here and here to get this angle. So what we do is 74 plus 23 is going to be 97. So x is going to equal 97. Now, how we know this is because 74 plus 23 is 97. So to find the last angle of the triangle, we would do 180 minus 97, which is 93, right? But since a line forms 180 degrees, we would just do 180 minus 93 again, which gives us 97. So as a rule, two angles over here add up to the third angle's complementary angle. And that's how we know the answer is 97.